Anastasia, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. As we're nearing the end of 2020, I think this year has created so much change in the beauty world that I don't think anyone was expecting at the end of 2019. So I want to do a little video, get ready with me style, kind of analyzing some of the trends or just shifts that we've seen in the beauty world. How, first of all, the pandemic has very much affected the beauty world and it's still not over. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's meant to be a little bit of a chill time. Grab a drink or some Flintstones gummies. I don't know, this was the only thing that was within my reach, so yeah. Today's Dew Fairy of the day, it seems fitting because I'm wearing a very yellow look and very yellow colors. Today's Dew Fairy of the day is a socially anxious Hufflepuff and K-pop stan. One of the most loyal Dew Fairies. This fairy comments on almost every video, and I always enjoy reading your comments, so you are crowned Dew Fairy of the day. Thank you. I think that's all I have to say. Full details of this look should be throughout the video. I actually did my best to mention everything that I used, so go me. Doing the bare minimum. Let's get crack-a-lackin'. Is that my new intro? Maybe. Alright, I'm starting off barefaced. I'm going to go in with my primer. This is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Rich Face Base. I wasn't a fan of this when I first tried it out, but I know it has a cult following and a lot of people roasted me in the comment section when I said I didn't like it, so I'm trying it out again, just trying to give it a fair chance. The first little point that I wanted to hit on is that the best performing beauty brands of 2020 are probably not going to be what you might think. These are going to be brands that definitely slid under the radar in terms of coming out with interesting releases in 2020, but still outperformed brands that were just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. So brands like Estee Lauder, Tarte, Too Faced, even Smashbox. These are brands that kind of rely on certain core products in their line. So for Tarte, that would be the Shape Tape. For Estee Lauder, it'd be Double Wear. For Smashbox, it's their line of primers. For Too Faced, they have a bunch of different kind of stable products, but they also come out with a ton of things that don't perform quite as well as their top selling things, which would be their mascara. And having these kind of core products in their line, relying less on flashy new releases to pull revenue in for them, is what got them through those early days of the pandemic that a lot of brands suffered through. Most brands in the US, and I think abroad too, from a pretty decent stretch of the year, from March to about mid-June, maybe early July, halted a lot of their production lines, especially creative development and new product production. ColourPop, for example, took a break from releasing new things for almost 3 months. I know it doesn't feel like that anymore. If that brand had a core product, bestseller product in their line that would continue selling despite people maybe not shopping for makeup as much, and I can personally see how that would just manifest in And I can see how that would manifest, especially in the early months of lockdown and everything, especially with months, even years of uncertainty ahead of you. I'm only repurchasing the basics. So for example, my favorite concealer, Too Faced Born This Way, makes sense, and that's what carried some of these brands through this really hard time with minimal dents. In addition, kind of tied to this, a lot of brands repackaged or kind of re-promoted certain existing products in their line during the absence of new releases. And I thought this was actually really refreshing, and I'd like to see that done in non-pandemic times as well. I don't know if I want to generalize this entire trend to all of YouTube, because I think it's mostly just confined to the people that I follow, but it kind of mirrored the trend of reusing products in your collection already and slower consumerism that I've seen a lot on YouTube or beauty YouTube. So I think that's a good example of how beauty brands have adapted to follow the trends set by beauty YouTube instead of vice versa. Because for a long time, it's been beauty brands setting the trends and all of us following. But yeah, April was interesting. I think especially on ColourPop's Instagram, I saw them posting palettes that they came out with maybe less than a year ago, but I'd forgotten about because they released such things at such a pace that it felt like centuries ago. But it was nice to kind of see things slow down in the beauty community a little bit and have the beauty brands kind of realize that they are non-essential. But yeah, that was point number one, the best performing brands of the year, especially as we see quarterly reports coming in from certain publicly traded beauty brands. Obviously we don't have stats on brands that aren't on the stock market, but we'll see brands that maybe aren't as exciting in terms of coming out with new innovative products all the time, but have those staple things that the general beauty consumer goes for, and those are the brands that didn't thrive during the pandemic but certainly survived it. Gonna go in with the e.l.f. High Definition Under Eye Setting Powder. I have been trying to pan this for the longest time. I don't know if you can see how much I have left. It's right up to here, so I've been doing a pretty decent job, but I'm just shocked that it's taken me this long to finish a tiny under eye setting powder. Every day I disappoint myself. The next point I want to hit on is, of course, we can't ignore the kind of social level of the beauty community and how a lot of brands fell from grace, not necessarily in a business way, but in like a drama or public image sort of way. Coming to the end of 2020, I think the brands that are at the top in terms of people's respect for them and love for them are very different from even the end of 2019, or especially the end of 2018. I would say the brand that has changed the most in terms of reputation, or at least suffered the most, has been ABH. They've really undergone quite the like meteoric rise that I think peaked in like 2018, maybe mid 2019. The brand as a whole has made some questionable decisions, but they've also been going in a lot more of a corporate direction. I feel like a lot of beauty consumers have really picked up on that, maybe not necessarily knowing the reason for that kind of shift, but ABH was bought out by billion-dollar investors last year. Or no, not last year, I think end of 2018. It was a record-breaking business deal in the industry, valuing ABH, I think, almost higher than Kylie Cosmetics at the time. But it did kind of, in that way, make Anastasia, which was a major brand, and it was obviously in Sephora, but it still felt like kind of an artistic slash almost indie feeling beauty brand. They lost that indie designation in a business sort of way, but I think they also lost that kind of indie special place in many beauty consumers' hearts. Most of that, I think, was really due to the pumping out of new releases that felt wrong from ABH. Personally, for me, I always knew ABH as a brand that rarely ever released almost anything throughout the year, but when they did, it was always fire. There was like an almost year-and-a-half gap between Modern Renaissance being first released and then Subculture, which was their next palette. Norvina palette was released, I want to say, a little bit less than a year later. The gaps between like palette releases or just major releases started getting smaller and smaller, in that a lot of the artistic vision behind some of the releases was also lost. In the past, when ABH would come out with new products, it always felt very special, and there would always be like a video explaining kind of Norvina or Anastasia's artistic vision behind a certain product and why it was special to their line, whereas the new things were like colorful cake liners. Not to say that's inherently bad, but I think the way that they kind of navigated this shift in their brand while still trying to kind of maintain that image of like, we're not like other girls in the beauty world. By the way, I'm sorry, I'm using the Kaleidos Charisma Contour Palette right now. This is the fair shade. In terms of rise and what has taken ABH's place, I think Fenty Beauty has probably assumed a lot of that role. Though Fenty, I've heard, has not had a great calendar year, just in terms of most of their business being on-foot traffic in Sephora stores rather than online, but they've still done pretty well for themselves, and I think Fenty has kind of occupied that fun, unique, cool older sister spot in people's hearts, as well as some other brands that kind of mirror Anastasia aesthetically. For example, Melt Cosmetics, even Naba Cosmetics, as they've kind of broken into the American market with Ulta. And that's not to say that Anastasia is doing bad by any means. I think they've just kind of lost that mystique and that like cool girl flavor that they used to have. Not bad for a hoe with no foundation on. My no foundation journey has been quite the emotional journey as well. I think the biggest hurdle has been kind of accepting that my face, if I don't use foundation, my face is never going to look completely smooth and completely all one color. I used to be very not okay with that. I would go in with as much concealer as possible because everything has to be one color on my face. But real skin is not like that, and I've gotten a little bit more okay with showing more texture and more natural discoloration in my face. I'm still not 100% there yet, but I think my skin health overall has improved a lot. So, rant over. That was very irrelevant. I'm sorry. Another sect of the beauty world that has done very well this year are two of my least favorite words in the English language. Clean beauty. I don't inherently dislike clean beauty. I think a lot of kind of clean beauty style brands actually make really fire products. I just don't love the way that clean beauty markets itself 90% of the time. I think a lot of them kind of hinge on this very toxic ideal of wellness. Traditional beauty brands are like non-clean beauty being dirty or unsafe, which it's not. I'm gonna go in with the Marc Jacobs Coconut Mall now. No, coconut bronzer. According to Forbes, in 2020, wellness-focused beauty brands did better, which I think is a positive and a negative. I love that people are focusing more on ingredients. I don't love that people think that you can read an ingredients list and review a product in that way. For example, looking at a skincare product, seeing that there's denatured alcohol in it and being like, nope, this is bad. So I do like the fact that the kind of focus on caring about ingredients that you put on your face and inside your body is becoming more of a thing. However, I can't help but be kind of hesitant to praise this raise in the wellness and clean beauty type stuff because I feel like it has, in a way, kind of inadvertently profited off of the pandemic, or maybe not inadvertently, which, girl, no clean beauty concealer is going to protect you from a virus, but hey, that has been the kind of third business trend of the year, which is clean beauty or wellness-focused beauty brands really having a meteoric rise. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing is up to your personal opinion. Personally, I think it's a both good and bad thing in many different ways. For blush, I'm going to go in with the Odeneye Alva Fruit Blusher. This is the shade Ripe Papaya. A beautiful peachy shade. It looks really vibrant in the pan, but it's not too overwhelming. And I've been going in hard with the blush lately. I just like the way a lot of blush looks. Heavy blush everywhere. That's what I've been noticing. I've been leaning a lot more towards more blush and a little bit less bronzer to kind of provide color to my cheeks, but still a good even mix. I basically covered up coconut mall, but it's fine. Next up, let's talk about the inevitability of department stores possibly shutting down or going bankrupt. I believe a few of the major department stores have actually shut down. I think it's Barney's, or maybe not Saks. I think it's Barney's. But department stores took a pretty big hit starting in 2019 actually. So in terms of beauty sales, most beauty sales moved to Sephora and Ulta. More people kind of going and shopping for makeup at Sephora and Ulta and places where you can buy a bunch of different brands instead of going to certain counters at department stores. And this trend continued, of course, into early 2020 and then accelerated when everything got shut down. Obviously, a big part of beauty sales in department stores is foot traffic. So it's actually estimated that the lack of in-store shopping during this relatively short, just few months period of time, shut down about 30% of beauty sales. Crazy when you think about like the billions of dollars that are spent in the beauty industry every year, and worse to think that these losses didn't actually hurt the people at the very, very top of the department stores, but most likely hurt the people working in them. Obviously, Sephora and Ulta were also hurt by the lack of foot traffic in person, but their online sales did a little bit better. Online sales in general did increase during the pandemic, especially for makeup, but they didn't even come close to offsetting the loss of the in-person sales. That has catastrophically wounded a lot of stores that were already suffering pre-pandemic. It's also been found that beauty product sales have also decreased at essential retailers like Target, CVS, which like makes sense. If I was going in and trying to get toilet paper, I probably wouldn't be focusing on getting a new L'Oreal eyeshadow, so this was very much expected. For highlighter, I'm going to go with the Kylie Cosmetics Ice Me Out. This has been an underrated favorite for me, and hopefully it looks nice on me today because my skin has been dry as hell. Oh yeah, that's pretty. That's really pretty. Okay. Before I move on to eyeshadow, something I've been doing lately is misting my face so that I kind of get everything to set together and get all dewy between. So I'm gonna go with the Fourth Ray Beauty Glisten Up Mist. This is my favorite very, very glowy spray. Extremely dewy. It looks like the Tatcha Luminous Dewy Skin Mist, but not as oily. So proceed with caution if you do get this. For eyeshadow today, the eyeshadow portion of this video has kindly been partnered with Odeneye. So I'm going to be using the Alva eyeshadow palette. This has been one of my favorites of the year. And we're going to be talking about indie brand makeup, so give me a second. But I'm going to be doing a little bit of a sunflower yellow look today, inspired by something that Angelica Oles did with this palette that I really loved. Also inspired by this look that I think Patrick Ta did on Adriana Lima. Oh, it's so pretty. I'm not going to look like Adriana Lima when I finish this, but we can dream. I'm gonna Prime Minister my eyes. That was such a bad joke. I'm so sorry. I'm so very sorry. I'm gonna reach into the shade here called Jasmine first and just lay that down in the crease. Before I proceed with the video, I just wanted to share with you guys that Odeneye is having their Black Friday sale from the 27th to the 29th of November. And during these 3 days, everything on their website is going to be 40% off. On top of that, you can also use my code or anybody else's code if you want to get a 10% discount. So go ahead and use mine if you want. It's there if you want it, but that stacks up. So my top recommendations for the sale would be, obviously this is my favorite Odeneye palette. I do love my Solmon palette as well though, and this will also be in there. Everything will be in there. My other top picks for the sale include the Alva blushes. I love the fruit blushes, but they have the flower ones as well if you like a shimmery one. The Alva lip stains, particularly the cream finish, particularly Little Jasmine, my favorite shade. The beautiful Solmon highlighter palette if you want some really nice, very creamy finish highlighters that are powder. And if you want something colorful, I would definitely recommend either the Ocean or the Forest mini palettes. But yeah, thank you again to Odeneye. They've been one of my favorite little indie brand discoveries of the year, and that's actually the next point that I want to talk about. As I just mentioned, The lack of foot traffic and in-store shopping has really negatively impacted a lot of retailers, but indie brands without storefronts have really taken advantage of this shift to online and marketing, and a lot of them have really thrived. Granted, I do say this with a grain of salt because a lot of brands, while a lot of indie brands have thrived during this time, it has definitely been a very difficult period for a lot of small businesses, and I don't want to minimize that. But I think the success of a lot of indie brands during this time and this kind of shift to online marketing and towards indie brands is a really positive one for the beauty community as a whole. I'm going to go in with the tiniest amount of Morning Glory. The look that Adriana has on her eyes has like very little, if any, darker eyeshadow, but I'm just going to emphasize the outer V just a tiny bit because I have little small eyes. But I love these mattes because they're really easy to blend out, so just in case I go in with a little bit too much darker brown like I just did now, you can always blend it out. Now I'm going to grab the yellow in here called Daisy and just pack the crap out of this all over my upper lids. Speaking of lids, that is the sixth little trend that I want to note this year, is that a lot of brands have really shifted to above the mask products. So eye products, mascaras, eyeshadows, eyeliners, etc. Or at least shifted away from a lot of products that people have been decreasingly using, for example foundations. I certainly noticed this year that there were a lot fewer releases of new foundations than usual, which is interesting because people go through foundation a lot more quickly than they do eyeshadow palettes, but then again it makes more sense to have many different eyeshadow palettes than many different foundations, so never mind. And in terms of trends in eyeshadow palettes, I've also seen a lot of shift towards more like neutral color schemes like this. I think neutral palettes used to get like ripped to pieces on Trend Mood in 2018. That was like the peak of the neutral hate train, where people were like, if you come out with a neutral palette and you buy it, you're boring. So I personally love to see neutral color schemes getting a little bit more love. I do predominantly wear neutrals despite what this eye look might suggest. And I think a lot of palettes, kind of like this one, where you have the option to do neutrals as well as more colorful looks, have been very popular as well. So for example, the Jackie Aina palette, which I know was last year, but still very popular type of color scheme to come out this year. Just in general, eyeshadows have continued to dominate, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Just to finish off, I'm going to grab the shade here called Baby's Breath and just pop that right onto the inner corner. So that was my look with the Alba palette. Now for mascara. I hate that I love this so much, but I really do. She really do be slapping. This is the Pat McGrath Dark Star Mascara, and I hate myself every time I use it, but I do love the way my lashes look, so. I mean, look at that! That's crazy! Alright, and then for my lips, I'm going to grab the Alba Lip Stain from Oden's in the shade Little Jasmine. Finally, the last 2020 trend that I want to note is that skincare sales were actually way up this year, whereas makeup suffered. Particularly CeraVe, or CeraVe, however you want to pronounce it, noted a big uptick in sales that actually put them above Neutrogena, which has been one of the top-selling drugstore skincare brands for almost a decade. CeraVe really said, you want to see some real speed, bitch. However, I don't know exactly how much I would trust these statistics because I've heard that a lot of brands are actually categorizing hand sanitizer sales under skincare, and that would be like with major conglomerates like Johnson & Johnson that own beauty brands as well as like kind of wellness, like body care type stuff. But I also think the increase in skincare interest has made more sense because A, mask acne has been such a real thing, and B, again, that kind of aforementioned shift into like wellness and people caring a lot more about what they put into their face and their bodies during this time, which I think is a good thing, mostly. But yeah, I'm expecting to see skincare companies continuing to thrive in 2021. I think this formula for success for skincare brands is going to look very different from makeup brands. Makeup brands kind of thrive on coming out with innovative, new, exciting releases, whereas skincare, it's a lot more about like, these are the things that we know work. So I think the success with skincare, it more so hinges on new brands coming out that are affordable, as well as finding ways to successfully market certain tried and true ingredients. So that is my makeup look, and I'm going to take my little clips out, and we're done. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, just talking about some of the biggest trends and shifts we've seen in 2020 in the beauty world. Not so much in the beauty community as in just like the general greater beauty world, which I think has very profound impacts on the beauty community itself. Thank you to my friend in business school who helped me organize this video. It was very appreciated. Thank you to Odeneye and their Black Friday sale for sponsoring the eyeshadow portion of the video. And then before I finish, I think the final trend that we've observed is a lot of creator burnout and a lot of people leaving the beauty community. And because I don't want it to come as a shock to anybody, to be honest, that's a little bit where I'm at right now, for personal reasons as well as just simply for time that I've not had. And I think a lot of the creator burnout that we've seen has been a lot more severe and a lot more large scale, but I'm hoping that taking care of ourselves can be a bigger trend in 2021. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you made it to the very end of this video, you get the bonus meme. Love you.
I thought it was fun. I liked the beat. So, yeah.